Good morning y buenos dias. As most people know, it is Latinx Heritage Month. And for some of you may or may not know this, but yes, I am Mexican. I'm Mexican American. Being Mexican, gosh, like what a question. ¿Qué significa eso? What does that mean? Okay, so here's the deal. I grew up in a county that didn't have a lot of Latinx people. My family was one of very few that, were residing in the city that I grew up in. And all my family, from my dad and my mom's side, they were all in Mexico. So we didn't have any family out here. Over time, some came and went, but for the most part, no. So I think that lends to just my unique experience in that respect, where, we had parents who were, for the most part, first generation. My dad was first generation here. My mom grew up in LA, but her family moved back and forth to Mexico a lot. So I don't think that she ever truly kind of like settled into the culture and lifestyle here. Kind of really embarking on doing that together as a small six unit family. I think growing up, I would go home and my family, my parents were really good about wanting us to continue to speak Spanish, but I personally struggled with my speech, as I'm like slurring right now. Just kidding. I struggled with my speech. I went to speech class, and I don't know if it was because my first language was Spanish, that it was really hard for me to make that transition into English. Specifically, I remember this very much, the TH, like thank you, the, and so forth, there, they. It's really, really hard for me. I would say, thanks. It was really hard. Luckily now I can say thank you without a problem. Yeah, so I think language was, something that as soon as I kind of grasped the English language, I didn't want to let go of it, which means that unfortunately Spanish took a back seat. Luckily, because I am into theater, I'm into the arts, I fell in love with telenovelas, which are basically like Mexican soap operas. Yeah, I love telenovelas. Like I loved this world because I was drawn to it because I knew it was a part of my life in some respect. I remember we would get so excited to go to Mexico for summer break or winter break. I mean, those were our vacations, whereas people around me would be going to excursions and whatnot. Like we'd go and visit family. It felt like this oasis. We'd go on this adventure, really, and experience things that I otherwise wouldn't have. And, from culture, food, the location, it was just another world, and it was really special. Then we'd come back home. I'd go to school, and nobody could relate to the experience that I had, and so I hid. I didn't really talk about it because nobody really understood, or sometimes they wouldn't say the nicest things. And so growing up, being Mexican American in a county that didn't have a lot of other people like me was challenging. And so I always found refuge in these telenovelas, in the music. I don't know if anybody out there who knows who Laura Pausini is, which ironically she's Italian, but she's huge in Latin America. Faye, I don't know if everyone knows who Faye is, and of course the famed Enrique Iglesias and Ricky Martin, and so there's some other notable ones, Shakira. So yeah, I found drawn to this side of the world because it was a way for me to connect with my family and my parents and their experience. That was really important. I think my grandparents played a big role. I got to see my mom's mom a little bit more often because they were out here in Baja, versus my other grandma. She was in Torreon, Coahuila, which is pretty far away. Yeah, my grandparents, through them I got to learn so much more about our history, our family history, our experiences. And I mean, I think it's so important to have those conversations, with even your parents, I think it really helps to kind of nurture that those roots of yours. My grandmother in particular, I think there was a special bond with her, not just because she was a great grandmother and she was the mother of my mom, but because she also grew up in LA. So she grew up in LA, and it wasn't until her 20s that she moved to Mexico to be with my grandfather. And so there was always this sort of connection that she had with myself and my siblings, because she knew that experience of being, from two different cultures and blending them together. And ironically, she would make us like waffles and pancakes when we go over to visit her. When it comes to food, I mean, no surprise here, but tortas, from Donas and Tortas, the name. You know, going to Mexico was such a fun experience for many reasons, but of course, food played a big role. You know, and until this day, like, you will not find tacos in Mexico the way, you know, like the ones that are out here, like for Mexican restaurants. I don't feel none will ever compare it to the tacos that you actually have, tacos that you eat out there in Mexico. It's just, it's next level. But tortas in particular, oof. First time I had a torta, I don't remember it. I just remember that every time after that, that's all I ever wanted to get when we'd visit. Now I'm pretty basic. My favorite torta is ham and cheese, with avocado, of course, con aguacate. But ultimately, all these things go to show that it's just, you know, I'm just proud of the richness that my culture holds and the family history behind it. I feel like it's just a part of me, you know. It's just, you know, sometimes I think in Spanish, you know, and sometimes I think I have certain experiences that lend themselves with the way I grew up, and especially coming from a family where, you know, I remember being a kid and they'd say these idioms and jokes like the when you're tickling and you say uncle, right? I didn't know that. I didn't know what people were saying. I remember growing up just feeling like, you know, I was missing something. I thought I was missing something. But I'm so happy to say that as I continue to dive into my culture and meet other people like me. Shout out to Hermanas Unidas, a casa in Fullerton, where I got to meet some other great Latinas. The more that I dove deeper into my culture on my own, the more that I realized I was never missing anything. Until the day I don't. Till this day I feel like I'm not. And I know that there's so much more to learn and understand. And being Latinx for me is one of the best things about me, that I love about myself. And I can't imagine myself any other way. Just like I can't imagine myself not being queer. It's a part of me. And it's funny when you're a kid, when you start to realize these things about you that make you different, sometimes you're afraid of that. But I'm truly happy to know that I'm fully coming into my own and realizing that these differences, these things that make me me, there shouldn't be any other way. This is the richness of being who you are. You know? You know. Happy Latinx Heritage Month.